So this is the first time I've done this conversation, easy conversation with you, Chris, on my personal page. So maybe we should give a little bit of an intro to the people who are joining in as to what this is, because I don't know if anybody really knows what it is. So what are we doing, Chris?
Over to me. Awesome.
Okay, well, just tell my people, because if I'm on my page, they know who I am, but they won't know who you are, Chris. So who are you?
All right. So well, I'm based here in Australia, and I actually met you on a conference, and I just felt really at ease, and I wanted to investigate that further. And out of that conversation, we came up with this almost like didn't know why we might want to do it, but just have a conversation from different sides of the world. And yet you and I seem to have similar kind of ways of making people feel at ease. And for me, it was about bringing that together and creating even more ease for people to hear some topics and some ideas and concepts through that ease, which is why then we called it Easy Conversations.
Because it was just easy.
Yeah. And I like that. It's one of my goals when, when I work with a client and I walk them back to my gate, because I work in a shed out the backyard. So I walk them down to the front gate to get them back to their car. And I just always love the feel that they just feel like things are a bit easier. And I feel like I've contributed to making sure that their life it might only be a micro bit of easiness, but ease is something I've always been on the mission to do. And you made my world feel a little bit easier.
How so?
So I thought that's got to be a good combination.
Awesome. So thank you for introducing yourself. And you own a company called Balance Central, right? So
I do. I missed that bit, didn't I? Yeah.
Good. I just want to plug you while you're here. That's all.
Awesome. Yes, Balance Central. And I get to work with clients on a global scale, which is interesting and on topic for today, being that it was never a goal of mine. And yet now that is what I do. Which is always fascinating when I think about goals or enter conversations around goals, because it can appear, what I've achieved in 12 years can appear like I've set a lot of goals along the way to have achieved it. And I actually haven't set goals in that way to go, oh yes, I want to work with people in the UK and be able to have easy conversations with people in Canada. And I never set that as a goal.
Yeah, so that's the topic for today. We're talking about goals. And I think Chris and I have probably similar ways about thinking about not necessarily setting goals. And I don't necessarily believe in setting goals now either, because there's a lot of baggage that's tied up with setting a goal and then believing at some point in the future you will be happy once that thing happens. Whether you lose the weight, get the job, get the girl, whatever the thing is that you're hoping to achieve. And a lot of people, because they put that out there, they're unhappy all the way up until hopefully someday maybe that happening.
Yeah, completely. And one of the other areas that I've focused on with a lot of my clients is a concept around what I title principle of wanting. So we want things, and then through the experience of that wanting, oh, I want to lose the weight, or I want to have that person come into my life, or and then it doesn't happen on the timeline that we set for ourselves because we consciously went, this is what we have to achieve. And yet then we don't. And so then we add that experience back to us and go, see, I'm going to set a goal and it's not going to happen. And suddenly we have this baggage of things not working out the way that we designed them to be. And yet everything in our life is actually perfectly designed. And it's our energy that's sitting behind us that's running a lot of that. And if we just rely on our conscious creation, we're always going to fall short.
It's true. And it's weird because I mean, I've had a lot of things happen in my life where I couldn't necessarily explain why they were happening in the moment, but looking back, everything makes sense. That relationship choice, that school decision, that failed relationship led to this. And if I didn't do all those things, none of this would have fallen into place the way that it had. So
Yes, but in the
trusting the
moments
process, but not knowing why the hell is happening to me right now can be a challenge.
absolutely, because we get caught up in the emotion of the moment, and we it's very tricky because when we get in the emotion, it can be really difficult. It sounds like it'd be simple, but to pull ourselves out of that emotion is quite challenging, which is why people have periods of time between relationships and other such things, because they're caught up in the emotion of it, and to pull themselves out and to get on with it is really quite challenging. As humans, we all struggle with this whole emotional thing.
But we can use those emotions to our advantage, right? So
Totally.
the way that I try to coach my people through their goal setting, because there's nothing wrong with setting a goal out there and putting out there, what do I want to accomplish? It's just trying not to tie yourself to the exact way that that's going to manifest, right? So what I try to get them to tap into is to identify what you want to feel and experience when you get the thing. And then use those feelings and emotions and try to find examples in your day-to-day life that already match up with that. So,
Yeah.
so instead of like having to have that certain job in that certain city in 6 months from now, like what does that represent to you? It probably represents something more around freedom and ease and fulfillment or something like that, right? So if you can find examples of freedom, fulfillment, and purpose or whatever in your day to day, then you're already living it before you're actually there, which is what you're seeking anyways.
Yeah, and then that allows that feel of what we're searching for to actually exist already, and more that we can acknowledge that it exists already, so we can stop getting caught up in the search. And
Yeah.
ironically, the thing appears much quicker
Right,
because we're
because
hooking into
you're not
it.
so tied up with not having it. So
That's right.
it allows it to flow more freely. The example I often use with this is um, like I can be in a really kind of pissy mood, right? But if and things not going my way and all that kind of stuff, but if I stop and settle myself down and just think about having a little tickle fight with my son, like it just the thought of like, okay, thinking back in time to when we would have had like little tickle, whatever, it'll bring like just the sound of their laughter or the sound of their laughter in my head will bring joy to my current situation, yet nothing in my immediate surroundings has changed. So you can take yourself to the place you want to be, feel what it's like to be there, and not actually be anywhere different.
Yeah, and it is very powerful being able to almost, it's almost a form of manipulating how
Like
you're
tricking the
choosing to
system.
feel. Yeah, you are. You're tricking that system into, someone that I respect very much over here talks about you just put a smile on your face and you'll immediately feel happy.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you feel it or not, just do it. You cannot not feel happy when you like, even if it's a forced smile, it
Right.
changes the current feeling. So you're manipulating and tweaking what it is you're feeling in the moment. So I actually, for those who don't have that experience of the joy of tickling a little kid and making them laugh hysterically, which I absolutely love to do.
I'm
It's
at
just
the
the best
point
sound
now where I
ever.
don't have to. I just have to threaten the finger. So that the closer the finger gets, the more laughter that comes out. So
I was so that child. No one ever had to tickle me. They just had to imply that they were going to do it, and I was done.
yeah.
Anyway, but, yeah, actually, literally changing the muscles in our physical body to a smile will also change the feeling that we're currently in. And it's a really simple thing. And so we can use our mental being. I think this is the thing. We can use our mental capacity to think of an event that brings us joy, or we could go a little more physical and just change the muscles in our face, and we'll also instigate that change, which then allows our circumstances to just look a little different because they feel a little different.
Yeah, I mean, that's what, I mean, there's a few different threads I can pull on this topic, right? But in simplistic forms, your thoughts affect your feelings, which affect the way that you behave, right? So if you can change anything in the thoughts or feeling version of that, you will behave in a different manner and produce different results. So whether it's intellectually thinking, okay, I've got to do something different about this. Okay, how might I look at this in a different way that feels better to me? That's one way. Or you can, like you said, physically change your behavior. In this case, I'm going to put a smile on my face, and that's going to change maybe what I think and feel now too.
Yeah. And we sometimes get caught up in, oh, I'm supposed to think about that differently. And then we get caught up in, oh, I don't know if I can think about that differently. And so I find the physical can be a little bit of a shortcut to being able to think about it differently. It's just one of those things that I've found.
Physical, so you're talking, in this case, you're talking about smiling, but like just moving my body will change my energy as well. So doing a workout.
Exactly, going for a walk, anything that physically getting up off a couch. Like if you, I just can't get up. Okay, today here in Brisbane, it's just this drizzly Friday morning. It's just nobody feeling like doing anything. They just want to just stay inside, and seriously, do we have to go out? And at the moment, we're kind of just coming out of a lockdown, so we have to wear masks if you do want to go anywhere. So who wants to do that? So it's really can be difficult to get off the couch. And I was sitting having my coffee early this morning, and I actually set an alarm to make sure that I got up, because then I just went and started doing things. Otherwise, the weather, the circumstance, the feel of the day would have kept me on that couch. And so, yeah, the physical getting up, doing anything else than what you're currently doing can actually change it. Any change in energy will start a domino effect. One of the other things I also find with goals that I kind of wanted to throw in with this, and it'd be cool to hear what your take is on this. I often see that people will set a goal based on other people's expectations.
Or what other people have decided is an acceptable goal.
Yeah. And not only that, they recognize a little bit of, oh yeah, well that might be for me or might not be for me, but then they default to it and can't find their own version of that. I had someone recently who was just in this dilemma of, well, it's a bit of a fork in the road. Do I keep going down this business path, or do I find a job that then supports the business path, and how do I combine the two, and those sorts of questions. And it really interesting hearing them talk about the influences that we look outside of ourselves to set these goals. And of course, my intention and the conversation I was having with that person was to actually look internally. What floats their boat? Where do they get joy from? What drives their energy? What feeds their energy will really tell them the better answer of which direction or which combination they needed to do. So I was interested on what your take is on that, with those outside influences affecting the goals we have to set.
Well, I think because of how we've been raised, we're in a very materialistic society, and everyone's keeping up with the Joneses. We all have the same house, we all have the same garden, we all have like a decent car. Like, I think we get wrapped up in.
Oh, and the six-figure business, that's the other one that's
That
a
was the one that was
classic.
coming up when you were talking about this. Like, yeah, I need, yes, exactly, six figures. And what does that mean every month and all this stuff? But that stuff really doesn't matter if you're doing what you love and you've got a sufficiency coming in that you don't have to worry about the number per se. But you're right. We get influenced by those around us. And I think it's this kind of seeing is believing paradigm. We've seen it as a possibility. Somebody has achieved that specific thing before. That thing is possible. So that's what I should reach towards, instead of defining what it is that you want internally, what's going to satisfy you, and then moving in that direction. So, and I think we just get kind of locked into other people's ideas, and we haven't explored what's possible for us. And it's crazy, but it's just how I think we just get stuck not believing that we're able to do certain things, and we think that that's all that's possible because that's all that's ever been seen.
And we look up to that particular person or that particular achievement or that particular goal that they seem to have achieved and go, well, I can just jump to that. And yet we forget to look at what has it taken. What was that 20-year overnight success journey really like?
Okay, so let me give an example from my life, because I don't know if I had specific goals in mind in my career when I started my government journey. But every 6 months to 2 years, I would climb up, climb over, climb up, like some sort of progression up my career, yet not being satisfied at any of those levels, other than I make a bit more money, I have more responsibility, and I have more people working for me. But I was never really like, oh yeah, I've made it now, right? So I'm chasing the dream that someone else has stated is the possible thing for me, but I'm not yet happy. So what's that all about? And it took me having the courage to quit and to do my own thing to find satisfaction in work that means something to me, which is so off the charts for most people to think that they can do, because they're so
Actually,
bound by what they perceive as possible.
and I think actually you've said something in there that I think is a really key thing that I don't even know if you realized you've said it.
Probably.
I want to highlight it, is you had to quit. Now that's a really interesting idea because I don't know that we have to quit. what we and that can be something that holds people back in making that change because they feel like they have to give up the something. So for me, I always worked in admin and quality management. And often now, 12 years on, people say, quality management, how did you go from quality management to running your own business and the type of business you do? Like, how does that even work? And when I got asked that question enough times, I realized that there was a really strong connection to both quality management and helping people in the way that I do now,
Mhm.
because I take them through a process. I get them to make their life easier, which is essentially what quality management is. It was just a really different version of it.
Mhm.
And so that idea of having to quit. So if I was to use that phrasing of, oh, well, I was in quality management and I quit that to start this business, I didn't. I actually took what I already had and I had to reform it. I
Mhm.
had to change it up. And yes, on the outside, it looks completely different. But I don't know that we ever quit what it is that we're doing. We just take it and reshape it. Because I know a bit of your backstory, and I actually think you just keep doing that.
Quitting.
No, reforming.
There's
Because
definitely been some reshaping of what I do. When I'm talking about quitting, um, I have trouble having my hand in two pots. So if I have a safety net, I'll gravitate to the safety net. So
Which
being
is
in
also
that,
common for most people.
so being in that government job, the stability, the security, the all of that stuff, the pensions, the benefit, and all the good stuff that comes along with that, the tethers to security, um, was not supportive for me in doing what I felt I really needed to be doing. I needed to be
Andy,
out to
do
do.
you see, but can you see that what you were doing in that government role is actually skill sets that you now use?
Okay, so I've never thought about this in this particular way before. I was in property management and I manage contracts. So I'm making sure that my clients are getting what they need, helping them structure their lives. The big difference between the work that I do that, so it's not like it's all of the things that I've taken are gone. You still have skill sets that you've taken on that support you in your life. I just am more quiet and asking them more questions to help them unearth what their real answers are. So I help facilitate that. But you're right, I do use pieces that I have developed over time that support me today.
And I wanted to highlight that quit thing because I think it's a default that we drop into to say that we have to quit this thing to start this other thing. And even I combined working part-time in quality management with starting my business. At that time, I did not see a correlation between the two at all, other than the timing was convenient in that I could work 4 hours a day in the paid job, and then I could work the rest of the hours, so I could do networking events at night and all those sorts of things. And so that was convenient, but I never connected that there was actually similar things going on as far as the way that I interacted with others.
For sure.
But it's also finding that right balance of time of moving from stopping that full-time or that part-time paying job and actually now putting all the focus into the business. I still personally worked full-time over that entire time. I just did part-time here and part-time here, which equaled a full-time.
For sure. Yeah.
So I actually, and I wonder whether that idea of having to quit what we're doing or what we think we should be doing stops people to looking a little bit further beyond and going, well, what if I didn't have to quit this, but the bits that I really like, that I can just move a little bit and extend it into something else and find a way so it's not a stop start.
So in your experience, what can you share your not stopping and starting? So where you're able to use the skill sets that you needed for one to the other.
Yeah, so so one of the skill sets that I have that I absolutely have always put in is organization and being able to communicate to people. So from going to working on a quality management process that I had to completely rewrite, it took a year for a manufacturing company for me to rewrite that to a level that it was, when it was audited, it was accepted. So that ability to organize and process and be proactive and forward thinking, that actually gave me the permission to drop down my hours because I had not as much work to do in that quality management role, which then I took exactly those skills of being processed and forward thinking and organized, and actually started setting up really key processes in my business that literally I had no clients in the first year of business, none, like zero. Actually, I had friends and family. I don't know that they actually paid me, but I did work with about 10 people in my first 12 months.
Did they pay in baked goods?
Maybe if I was lucky. So I was able to put that kind of process and forward thinking and effective communication with others from a process perspective in place. So I was able to morph that and I was still doing probably the same amount of time and effort, but I just wasn't doing it for this business anymore. I was doing it for mine. And that allowed a really, I'm going to call it a soft transition. And it literally, I remember being called in the September of the first year in my business, where I was doing nothing, or had no clients. And the boss said to me, "Oh, Chris, you've done such a great job here, but we need to take you down to 2 days a week. Would that be okay with you?" I'm like, had my arm behind my back going, twist my arm, sure, if that's what will work for you. So suddenly I was given the space.
Right.
Because at that time, I hadn't set a goal. I want to bring this back to the goal setting. I had not set a goal to go, right, I'm in this part-time job for a year and a half. That'll be it, because that's all I'm going to need. Like, I don't know. So that the business will start properly with everything set up beginning of 2010. No, I was just bumbling around going, okay, well, I'm really good at this. Like, how about I just put that over here? And then because I was just kind of going with what was in front of me, I got this opportunity to spend more time in the business. So then I was in a position to go, oh, awesome. Because that technically happened 9 months in.
The thing that's popping up, like if you had set a very specific target and basically put your blinders on that you're going to hit this one target, you're not open to seeing anything else that's happening around you, right? So I think that's how a lot of us focus and think we're going to get something done, is by putting on those blinders and going in that direction, but we miss out on so many other opportunities. So by being more vague about your overall goal, it actually allows you to be able to look around and be surprised by what shows up.
Absolutely. And that means that I had to set, I call it an intention, and then let go of it. Because I had not a lot of control about the timing of when I was going to be able to focus full time on my business. It was an intention I had, but I hadn't formed a picture around what that would look like, or when that would happen, or how that would play out. Like this room that I'm sitting in now didn't exist. I had no visual of that. I was literally working out of a room in the back of the house rather than a separate building. So I didn't have any, didn't have that picture in my head, and it was almost an advantage because I didn't have without having the vision, I actually allowed it to play out.
Exactly. And by that, you can be surprised and delighted by what shows up, versus when you pigeonhole yourself into one particular outcome and it doesn't show up or doesn't happen, then it's a disappointment.
Yeah.
And
every time.
What I do find also is, even in goals that were achieved, how long did you spend actually celebrating the success before resetting the new goal? Like, yeah, I did it. Okay, next. Like there's no celebration. Like you climbed Everest and went, yeah, where's my next peak? Let's go. You haven't even gone back down the hill yet. You haven't planted your flag. You haven't cheered. You haven't celebrated. Nothing. What's next?
Yeah, that's right. Now, what's interesting is that I have a mentor at the moment who he lets me celebrate for about a week.
That's it.
And then he goes, what's next, Chris?
I just think there's something to be said, because the goals that we set, we hope are going to make us happy, yet we don't even spend the time celebrating when they do come true.
And getting that happiness and getting that feeling, going, right, that's what I want to build on. Yeah, so I think ultimately it comes back to the feeling.
And trying to tap into that more often.
Totally, completely, yeah.